Hello and welcome everybody to the Monsters Playbook and a brand new episode of Book Club, our interview and roundtable series where we talk about our show, Monster of the Week, and all things TTRPG. For this episode, we're going to be talking about my favorite thing about tabletop games, which is role-playing. We have a lot to discuss, but I want to first introduce my wonderful guests and fellow podcasters, Allard, Cap, Ghost, and Heather. So why don't we go around real quick and have each of you guys tell us about yourself, your show, your pronouns. Allard, why don't we start with you?
Well, all right. Hello there. Hello, everybody. Allard LaRue, he, him. I'm part of a little podcast that's called the Dice Crisis Podcast. We have just finished, well, I guess it was a couple months ago now, but we recently finished a 3-year-long campaign where we play Pathfinder first edition for that one. We did Paizo's Second Darkness module or Adventure Path. We're the only ones out there who have done it right now. So if you know you're not going to play that one, hit us up. the perfect time to just binge 140 some episodes
Holy
of podcast.
Moses.
Quite the backlog. That's awesome.
And yeah, we are on a little hiatus right now, but we are soon to be coming out with some kind of shorter format stuff, probably starting in Pathfinder 2nd edition. That's that for right now.
Cool. All right. Well, next, Cap, why don't you tell us a little about yourself?
Hey, I'm Cap, he, him. I play Ari Green on the podcast Shrimp and Crits, a fellow Monster of the Week podcast. We are just about to finish our first season, so that's very exciting. So catch up now.
Yes.
I'm trying.
Ghost, I believe you would be next.
Hi, I'm Ghost, they, them. I'm on We're Not in Kansas Anymore with Dungeons and Pop. I play 4 people in a trench coat. It is the
Nice.
Absurdia system, so I play the Zeitgeist. So it's a hive mind. It's very fun, and we've been doing that for a while, but playing TTRPGs forever.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And Heather.
All right, I'm Heather, she, her. I play Mags Oliver on Nameless Monsters, which is another actual play. We currently run Monster of the Week, but we're going to be switching things around as we go, just wherever the spirit leads us, so to speak.
Very exciting.
Awesome. Thank you guys for introducing yourselves. So we have these wonderful people here today to talk about role-playing, which is my favorite part of tabletop games. That's puts the R in the TTRPG. And so kind of just to kick things off, I wanted to get a sense of how did you guys all get into role-playing and playing tabletop games in the first place? For myself, I've only been playing since 2019, I think is when I first started getting into it. So I'm relatively new to the hobby. But once I got into it, I couldn't stop.
Mm-hmm. That's the trap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For me, I also started 4 years ago, which is weird to put it like that, because it's like, God, 4 years?
Mm-hmm.
I actually started from a mutual friend. I started with D&D 5th edition.
Mm-hmm.
A friend of mine, who I'm not friends with anymore, funnily enough, gave me their spot in a campaign because they weren't friends with the other people in the campaign anymore. And so I had to take their spot. And then that was just like, that campaign is still going 4 years later with the same characters. And we branched out to different systems. And so I now run a home game of Monster of the Week for some of those players too. And yeah, I couldn't get enough, couldn't stop.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's great.
What about you, Cap?
Oh, I started playing tabletop games about 10 years ago. Ryan, who you may know as Ray from my show, he invited me over to their home D&D game. I've always been very much a nerd, so it was right in my wheelhouse. I learned all of 3.5 to go over there, D&D 3.5, and then as soon as, like the week before we started to play, they were like, we're going to go 5e. So I was like, oh, fun. That's great.
Yeah.
Let me just relearn everything I know.
Yep.
But 5e is much easier than 3.5. Some might say otherwise. But I played for 2 or 3 sessions before our DM quit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I took over as the DM, being the newest person in the group, just because my mind was full of stories to tell.
Reverse seniority.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody else wanted to do it. Everyone just wanted to be a player. So I was like, I just learned this game. It's fresh in my head. Let me get in there.
Yep.
So that is how I started. And we've been playing that game weekly for 10 years.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
That's crazy.
I mean, we've missed a few weeks just from holidays, but it's not the same campaign.
I was going to say, you must have gone through
We've
a
gone
couple
through
campaigns
homebrew
That's
games. Yeah, we've gone
amazing.
through modules and books.
How many times have you hit
Awesome.
level 20?
None, actually.
Wow.
We usually start a campaign, get to like 10 or 15, and then start a new campaign.
That's where the fun is.
Awesome. What about you, Heather?
So I started, I feel like a grandmother here. Many years ago, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, my youngest brother was gifted all of the 2E books from one of our
Awesome.
cousins.
Wow.
And so he became obsessed and needed somebody to play with him. So there I was.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been playing 2E, 3.5, Pathfinder First Edition. We played Star Wars games, the Leverage system, which is really fun. If anybody out there loves a heist game, strong recommend. But I loved getting to make up backstories and build characters, and that gave me a great outlet for it. And then I was a theater major in college, and who can say which led to which, but
Right.
they definitely
Chicken
hold
egg,
hands. Yeah.
Yeah, I was always growing up. I was a theater kid, and so I always loved performing. I loved to sing, all that kind of stuff, and so I wish I knew about it so much sooner, because it is such a creative outlet, such a great scratch that performance itch that I don't really get as easily now that I'm out of school. So it's so much fun. What about you, Allard?
Yeah, well, I too was a theater kid in high school, and I did sound for theater in college, so that probably helped on the way to this path. But yeah, in college, my buddy Michael, you know Michael, right, Lauren?
I know Michael. Yeah, we went to school together.
Yeah.
We all know Michael.
Everyone knows Michael here?
Yeah.
He's a great guy. He was like, he really wanted to get a table together to play maybe D&D, maybe Pathfinder. He eventually was like, let's play Pathfinder, because he had started listening to a podcast that was playing Pathfinder First Edition. So he was like, he understood it, and he wanted us to play that one too. And then we got to met up with another friend, Jenna, I believe her. Yeah. You might know Jenna. I don't remember her last name though. Of course.
We all know Jenna.
I think she was another art major at our college. But yeah, she taught us how to play and got us going. And then we had one GM that started us on the Rise of the Rune Lords Pathfinder First Edition. They're kind of like their first big adventure path. We eventually, that GM dropped off, and then Michael took over for GM during that, as GM for that. And we played like the first 2 books of that adventure for 3 years. And we really didn't really know how, the kind of ins and outs, progressing the story and stuff. We were a little bit too video game minded at the time.
Sure.
And then once we left college, we all were trying to find ways to keep meeting up and stuff. And playing Pathfinder was a good way for us to do that. And I started getting more into podcasts, and then I was like, let's trick my friends into committing more to the story and their characters by recording them and giving some stakes to it. So that's how it was all born.
I find it interesting that you mentioned the video game mindset, because I think that is so natural. It's such a natural progression to go from a role-playing video game to a tabletop role-playing game.
Mm-hmm,
and
absolutely.
Yeah.
I remember distinctly having a moment in my head that I unlocked everything for me. I was like, wait, I can just kind of do the things that I do in video games, but there really isn't any constraints.
Yeah. And the little things can still impact the world.
Yes, it was so much fun. I remember, I think the first time I ever played it, I was just doing a one shot. We had pre-generated characters, and I had the little sheet that's here are your ideals and your bonds and all that stuff. And I was like, wait, so these are character motivations, things I should be doing. And then being wait, so could I, the spider that we just killed, could I go over and coat it with like venom to like make it like add poison damage. And they're like, if you roll well. And I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. So, I loved it. I was sold. I was bought in.
Ghost, are you an ex-theater kid?
Oh, no, okay, that's
me
so
neither.
funny. We mentioned that because I actually am not an ex-theater kid. I am currently majoring.
Yes.
So I'm the only one.
One of us.
Nice.
Love it. Love that we've got some theater nerds here. So talking a little bit about, that moment where it kind of clicks and you're like, oh, I can have this character that I get to do that has, actions that impact the world around you, and building that kind of character and that understanding of what a character is in a tabletop game. I want to kind of know, what do you guys do either before, during, or after a game to sort of help you guys get into character?
For me, character playlists are big.
Yes.
Word.
Yeah, there have been times where I'll be on a binge for a certain artist or a certain playlist or this and that. And it's like, okay, it's Wednesday. We're playing in like an hour and a half. Let me turn on my Allard playlist, get in that space, or whoever character I'm playing. I have like over 100 playlists on Spotify just on account of every character gets one to, I think my max is 3 or 4 playlists for one character.
Different moods.
Very music oriented.
Maya on our podcast does the same for her characters. She's got I think her like Casey Davis playlist is like over 200 songs long. And I'm like,
Oh, wow.
it's a lot.
Sometimes it's like chronological, sometimes it's just vibes. I have one character that has 3, where one of them is like a chronology, and then there's another one that's just every single song that wouldn't actually fit somewhere on the timeline. And the third playlist is for her and her wife just being gay.
Yeah. I love it.
I encourage that a lot in home games too, because I think it really helps the GMs or the dungeon masters learn a little bit more about the characters if you send them your character playlist and they actually take the time to listen to it. I think it's very helpful.
Oh yeah, there was a whole arc based on one single song on my playlist.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, I love that. I did the same thing. I make playlists for all my characters. I also keep I have, if we're talking character voices as well, there's like phrases that you use to get into the character. So I have that for every character.
Yeah, same.
What's your phrase for Ari?
It always just starts with like, Sarah, we need to get out of here. It's always Sarah.
Sarah.
That's awesome.
That seems about right.
Yeah. So it's just yelling at Sarah. That's usually how I find it.
Poor Sarah.
What about you, Heather?
Well, I'm actually, again, I'm an old fogey, so my music tastes are not as broad as I feel like they need to be for the character playlists. I've established on the show that Mags listens purely to 90s mom music, which was a very specific choice that I made so that I could actually like pull lyrics as needed from my dusty brain.
Now what exactly is 90s mom
I was going to
music,
say, I feel like
please?
I might be a 90s mom, even though I was born in the 90s.
Like Wilson Phillips, Hold On, right?
Okay.
Is like the consummate 90s mom song.
Sure.
Inya probably is very 90s mom.
Okay.
Love it.
For me, it's I tend to know my characters really well because I do a whole lot of pre-game building. And unfortunately, even in Monster of the Week, which you're really not supposed to do. But I just can't help it. It's like a scab, and I just have to pick at it. I have, what did they do? Where did they go to elementary school when they were 12? It's crucial that I know this information. But I'm also the note taker in all of my games.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's really important for me to just do a check-in to figure out what my emotional state was the last time we met so that I can come back in and bring the appropriate energy, particularly on the podcast. Because I also edit, I'm usually deep in whatever happened 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And to come back in, and remember, oh, wait, no, we're not in the cave anymore. We are back in town. Okay, who were we talking to? What were we doing? So it's just that continuity is really important for me.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Absolutely.
What about you, Allard?
I guess I don't really have too much of a ritual to get into characters. Usually,
You're
like,
a GM, so you're doing so many different characters.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I'm always in character, and I was just like the story and all the characters were just like always in my head for 3 years. So it was it's always just kind of there. And then there's always the kind of like just having your brain open to just like pop in a new character randomly. That's always a thing. I always found that I could get into a character's accent more easily by like saying their name in their full name with their accent.
I'm gonna have to try that.
That always just kind of like tuned me up a little bit towards them. Otherwise, it's just, I always had maybe like a half hour to an hour like of just time where everyone was coming to my house to record. So it was kind of just like kind of waiting time where I could just think about everything that was going to happen, the characters and stuff like that.
Right.
So just always kind of having it in my head or having some time just to rethink about everything that's happening in the campaign and the characters and stuff.
No, thinking time is like so valuable. I used to do that so much more when I was driving into work, and now that I work from home, I don't do it as much. But I would like just during car rides, I might just like think like, what is my character like? How are they thinking? What after what happened last session? What's their motivations going into the next session? How are they gonna? Do they want to maybe have a conversation with somebody? Just kind of thinking of those things, or trying out character voices if you have a character voice. Like
that's what I spend all my time in the car doing is just moving my mouth around, trying my throat in different ways, just finding the weirdest voices.
Yep.
There's I find for me the time after a session is like when I'm a player, at least the time like immediately after, and then like a couple days after the session is when I get a lot deeper understanding of the character. I so often will make these outrageous choices in character, and I don't know why I'm making them. Like in the moment, I have no clue what's going on. I don't know why I'm making these choices. They feel so out of character. And then when I think about them like a couple hours after, not like right after the game, because I'm still like, holy shit, what did I just do? But like a couple hours after, or like a few days later, I'm just like, wait a minute. Oh, wait a minute. That makes sense with that and that. Like there was one session I went on like a whole heist in the middle of the night on my own, and then left a calling card. And this was a character who was a rogue afraid to steal and who hadn't stolen anything in 50 years.
Oh.
Amazing. And so it's like after the session, I was like, wait, what the? Wait, why is that? Can we swear here? Have we been swearing?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I was like, what the fuck just happened?
You can fucking swear.
Thank fuck. I was like, what the fuck just happened? And it took me like 2 or 3 days to work out why. And then once I did, it made so much sense, and I was able to like, I understood so much more about the character. It's weird how much I can figure out in like a few days after the session.
Yep, for sure. Awesome. So talking a little bit about characters, do you guys have a character type that you kind of find yourself naturally gravitate towards, or do you kind of go all over the place? Curious what's your normal mode?
Yeah, I guess when I've played characters and stuff, I usually choose a different class and stuff every time.
Yeah,
and
like the variety.
But Pathfinder gives you so many options to never play the same thing twice. But I always kind of gravitate towards like half spellcaster, half martial characters, because I like the little bit of versatility with in those. And I always go for like more of a dex based than a strength based kind of thing.
I always, maybe it's just because of how I am personally, but I always go for like the smart one. I was the studious person in school, and like so I feel like I'm always they always call me the mom friend in like whatever that is. I'm always the responsible one for some reason. So it's fun when I get to deviate from that.
I've had a good time playing a dumb character who's very wise. Just like he gets what's going on, but he's going to say it really dumb, or other random things are going to go over his head. That's always just kind of fun.
Absolutely.
I typically play characters that have a start and end point in my head, I would say, like where there's a lot of growth
Sure.
to be had as a character, not skills wise. I do usually play like out of touch in a way, like otherworldly, I guess you
Sure.
could say,
That's just
where
fun.
they have to
Yeah.
fit in
Yeah.
to whatever environment they are in. But I typically play charisma characters. Ari is really my first sad boy character. I do really enjoy it, but I usually play like the voice of the party, intelligent charisma, if we're talking D&D.
Yeah.
I typically stray away from magic. It's either no magic or like 0 to 100 magic of a warlock where you just are everything all at once. I play a lot of different characters. I love a himbo. I love playing a himbo.
Himbos are great.
Yeah.
It's great. It's a good relaxation from being like the serious, sad guy.
Yeah.
I am all
Yeah.
over the place. I just love playing different characters.
I also gravitate towards charisma characters, like because I myself am a talker. My first character I ever made was 5th edition, so a negative to charisma. Because that fit. I was building the character and that fit. She's a wood elf. She's been secluded in this like one forest her whole life. She's not really a people person. And oh dear God, has it bit me in the ass. This is like our very first arc. We were talking to gods, and I was sitting there like, I'm the talker of the party. Because the bard has a social anxiety in real life.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I'm the talker of the party, but when I have to roll, I get like a -1. This isn't suited for this. And it wasn't even intentional, but I have noticed over the years that every single character I have made after that, no matter what they are, I've played everything on the spectrum from any system I can get my hands on. They are always charismatic.
Yeah.
They're always a talker, always a people person, because I can't put myself through that again.
For sure. What about you, Heather?
I play a lot of different classes, certainly, in various systems. I tend to play. I don't like in tabletop games and video games anything. I'm never interested in playing the evil character. These are they're always wish fulfillment for me, right? And my wish, I want to be able to save the world, and in this fantasy setting, I can do that for real, which I know you all can't see, but was it in air quotes? I can do it for real in my fantasy game.
Yep.
But I'll play either highly strung do-gooders like Mags is on the show, or some former characters, a lot of himbos in no thoughts, just sword. Very fun.
Yeah.
It's nice to turn the brain off. I do have a tendency to play characters that push the button.
Those are always fun.
Yeah. And I personally, one of my great character flaws is that I am not good at transitions.
Okay.
Like those interstitial moments that kind of my husband always gets irritated with me, because as soon as the car stops, I want to be out of it because we are wherever it is we need to be. And so let's go there. Why are we sitting in the car? And so in games, when we hit, 20, 30 minutes of theorizing about, hey, which path should we take? My character is gone.
Gonna do it. Yeah.
I have made a decision. You guys do what you're gonna do. I'm going.
Flipped a coin and gone.
Yep.
Nope, I feel that. And then I guess kind of the second part to this. So if maybe you are playing a character that is outside of your comfort zone or something that you are struggling with, do you have any advice for players, or for advice for players to maybe make a character feel unique to them? Maybe it's adding an accent or something, or character voice to your things. What sort of advice would you give?
My advice for everybody playing a tabletop RPG, whether you're running the game or being a player in the game, is to slow down and breathe.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're on a podcast, because it's recorded. You can take your time. You can think about what you're going to say.
Absolutely.
You do not have to react immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it happens. You react immediately in character, and it's great. But if you can't think of what to say, just say, hold on a second, let me think. Or if you're working on a voice, like
Yes.
Ian all the time will be like, hold on a second, mute his mic and do one of his wild voices and then come back with it.
Yeah.
Like, there is no rush, especially in a home game. Take your time.
Exactly.
Just take your
Yeah.
time.
Yep.
To find a voice, if you're starting, I would say mimic a character from something, from TV
Yeah.
or
100%.
even
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
audiobook. You know, a lot of Ari's voice came from the main character from the Netflix show You. It's very
Nice.
Wow.
Nice.
Then I
Oh, wow.
saw You.
Great. Now
He's
that's
this
all I'm
very
gonna think about
calculated.
when I
Yeah.
watch
Oh,
that
man.
show.
He would also be a
Yep.
fantastic Ari, I have to say. He'd be amazing. But his voice is so slow and metered, and he does
Yes.
not change.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. My players in my Monster of the Week game, they've watched me sit and struggle through the like saying, 6 words of a sentence and then full stop. Nope, that's not your voice. Hang on.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
The first time we had it was a Scottish character in the campaign who was going to be permanent. It's one of the players' therapists who is going to turn out to be a retired monster hunter. So I was like, okay, this person's voice has got to stick. The first time we were having him talk, like the first time we were role playing out one of the therapy sessions, I like Hap just said with Ian, I muted my mic. I turned on a podcast, The Antique Shop, if any of you know it.
Okay.
Nice.
And I I forgot to turn my video off, so they both just got to sit there watching me animatedly mouthing Scottish words that they couldn't understand because they couldn't hear me because we record that game just for our own sake, and I didn't want all of my flubs to be on recording. But yeah, I would absolutely agree with take your time. And as far as like playing a character that's out of your wheelhouse, like I mentioned, the low charisma character very much out of my wheelhouse. It's a lot of it is open communication. Like let your players, especially your GM, know that you're struggling or that you anticipate, even if you haven't started yet, you just kind of anticipate having trouble with it. Just have that conversation, because you might be surprised by how many of your fellow players and especially your GM are also kind of in the same boat as you. And it really, like, once one of you starts that conversation, everyone's going to keep it going. You're all going to have a much more open table where you can really embrace each other's mistakes because you're expecting them. If you start to get frustrated, take a deep breath, and everyone will know the situation because you talked to them about it ahead of time, and everyone will have a good time.
For sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all that too. And I think that in order to like get out of your comfort zone and make a character feel unique, you have to like kind of not stress about making it unique. If it's out of your comfort zone and you don't really know how to do it, find an inspiration in a character from something else, try to mimic that. And because you are your own individual person, your character is going to be unique because of that, even if you're shooting for a goalpost.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to say as well. Particularly, I feel with Monster of the Week, we're all playing playbooks. These are all archetypal characters. And to me, that is the pleasure of this system, that we get to tell these stories about these archetypes that we know, and we understand how their brains work because we've seen it told and told again. But there's still something important in that, some story that remains to be told with your version of that archetype. And are they rising to meet that ideal, that platonic ideal of whatever that character is? Are they falling away from it to become someone else? And that's what gives you an arc. That's what gives your character shape. And so don't stress about it. Just have fun.
Yeah.
I have one more thing to say. If you're playing with people who you haven't known for like 10 or 20 years, like the people I've been playing with, use a safety system. Use lines and veils. Use the X card. Google those. So many games have them. It's all free to find online. Just safety tools for your table. Yeah. just have a conversation.
I'm so glad you guys brought that up, because we actually, by the time that this airs, the previous book club episode will be out, and that one actually is specifically about safety tools.
Awesome.
So check that
yeah.
out. It has a bunch of resources in that episode. It talks all about the X card, checklists and stuff like that, and just making sure that you're in good communication. So thank you for bringing that up.
We're all just trying to play a game.
Yeah,
It's all
we're having
fun.
Exactly.
One person's not having fun, then no one's having fun.
Exactly.
Yep, that is very true. So I'm curious. So Heather, you kind of mentioned a little bit in one of your previous answers that you maybe struggle with some of the interstitial type stuff. But
yes.
What is your guys' greatest challenge when it comes to just role playing or improv in general? Do you struggle? Is it the character voices? Is it dramatic scenes? Or is it the planning investigatory scenes? What do you guys? What is the biggest challenge for you guys?
Honestly, for me, beyond the push the button instinct that I have, which I will maintain is a strong character choice that somebody needs to be that person. I'm an asset.
Mm-hmm. We always need that person.
Yeah. That's right. But aside from my obvious strengths as a role player, I fight so hard the game aspect of all of this. It's so hard for me not to make the right choice, not to say, okay, I'm going to boost my stats this time, or I'm going to take this move from this playbook because it's really going to synergize with something that Brad is doing.
Right.
Because if it's not character motivated, and again, particularly in Monster of the Week, if it's not character motivated, then that's not the choice you need to make.
Yep.
And that is really, really hard for me, because I really want to win these role playing games, you guys. I want to max out my light side meter. I want to get all of the chests on the level, all of that stuff.
Completionist.
Yes.
Oh boy,
All the
am I
trophies.
ever. Yep.
All right. What about you, Ghost?
It really depends on the system for me, because sometimes the system itself can present challenges. There's I'm in a Mass Effect game, a Vampire the Masquerade game, and with those bigger systems that have a lot of established world lore, I find it sometimes hard to just keep along with the game and stay engaged in this system that everyone seems to know more about than me. But in a normal game, when I'm in my element, I sometimes find it very hard to not just bull forward. Not in an impatience kind of way, but in I'm a fixer. I am a problem solver. I'm aware of this in myself. And sometimes being the talker, investigator of the party means that I try and go off and solve the whole puzzle on my own. And having to stop myself and remind myself that just because I can doesn't mean I should. And oftentimes I probably can't. So I shouldn't make the other players wait while I try to go off and do the, find every chest on my own. I'd say that's one of my biggest struggles as a player is just the going off on my own, because if I can solve this for everyone, then nobody needs to deal with it, except that's what we're there for. Right. Yep. That's why we're here. It's the game.
Yes. Yep. What about you, Allard?
I guess coming from a GM standpoint, I always have a trouble holding character voices for too long, especially if I'm all right, now I have to exposit a bunch of things and remember all the details in this character
or
voice.
Between multiple
NPCs,
that's the worst.
Yeah, exactly. Go back and forth.
Yeah.
It's yeah, just kind of the maintaining the consistency throughout, I think is most challenging.
That's so funny, because I have such a hard time coming out of a character voice once I'm in there. I get stuck in there all day.
Yep.
I have a hard time. This is going to sound funny. I have a hard time being mean to my friends.
Funny, I've never had any issue with that.
I often play characters not good aligned. Not to say that they're evil, but often they're selfish or narrow-minded in a way. There's a part in our show, I will refer to it as the cloud fight, where we get in a big interpersonal discussion and argument in character, and it was like we had to stop and decompress after. No, it's hard because I've known these people a decade or more. I met Ian in 9th grade of high school, like
Wow.
yelling at each other and like things like that. It is hard. And I have to do it a lot as this character because he is just so alien to this world and to human emotions that he has to get it like knocked into him sometimes. Literally. So that is the hardest thing for me, is just like turning off the fact that I've known these people almost my whole life and love them very much, and I have to be cold. Being cold is hard to your friends.
Yeah, that's kind of the to piggyback off what you're saying, Cap. I can empathize with that, not necessarily the being mean to my friends, but getting in the emotionality of a character and where that can like sometimes intersect with yourself. Because I like, you probably in like the acting world, there's method acting and there's whatever. For whatever reason, when like my character gets angry or sad, I actually will cry. Like, that's just how I am. And so that is something I'm trying to work better on, to just take a breath and like recognize that these emotions are my character's emotions and stuff like that. So I empathize with that.
And it does help. Like, this is obviously speaking from a place of great privilege, having a room like this where you can do your character and then leave the room and go be your real life again. That is huge. Obviously, it's very privileged to have a space like this, but it does help dramatically.
And I will say too, that exact phenomenon is one of the things that makes role-playing games so magical to me. Is that, our brain wires itself so that these things that we experience, even if they are fictional, become as real as things that we have actually done and actually experienced. And, so these memories that we are making with our friends and the people that we love are going to be as real as, our childhood memories. And I think that is amazing. Like, human brains are just astounding on any level, but that in particular just gets me right in the heart every time.
Especially when you're recording it and putting emotional music behind it, it really hits.
Oh yeah.
When I listen to that speech for the 10th time while I'm trying to get the beat right, man, it really just is gonna live in my brain forever.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've touched a little bit on some general advice, I think, for getting into character, but I want to talk a little bit specifically about somebody who is new to this hobby, to tabletop games, because when you are coming into tabletop games and you've never roleplayed before, it's very likely that you're going to do what you're just, you're going to say, I would like to hit the dragon or whatever. You might not understand. So what's your guys' advice for if you're new to the hobby, but you want to maybe step into that role-playing aspect of it more, but you're not sure how to like bring it up at your table or whatever it might be? Do you guys have any advice for new players?
I mean, play Monster of the Week.
No, play Pathfinder.
Play yourself. Play yourself in Monster of the Week. It's modern day. Just play. That's what Crit Show did. They're great. They started playing themselves, and if you play yourself, you're going to play a hyperbolic version of yourself, that is going to lead you into different characters. But I mean, you can do it in any system, I guess, but Monster of the Week just seems easy because it's modern day. But just start with yourself. But you have magical powers or a sword, Play the cooler version of yourself.
That is a great advice.
Yeah. I think something I would say is to like, and this is, I will acknowledge right off the bat, so much easier said than done.
Yes.
But just checking your anxiety at the door is something that cough theater major comes from acting classes. Where it's like you have to understand that everyone there is playing this game. Everyone there is pretending. You're sitting down and you're playing pretend like when you were a kid.
Let's play house.
You probably didn't have, I mean, unless you, like myself, have a certified anxiety disorder, probably didn't have any have a stress about playing pretend as a kid. Everyone there is in the same boat as you. They might not be as new. They might have been doing this for a while, but everyone there is there to have a good time and to play pretend, and you making a fool of yourself is going to happen.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's just going to happen.
Mhm.
And so I think preparing yourself for the, like, I am going to be embarrassed. And so is everybody else at some point here.
Mhm.
We're all
Absolutely.
going to do stupid shit.
Yep.
That's what makes it fun.
Yes.
And just kind of like
Mhm.
tapping into that vulnerability. Because we all
Yeah.
build up so many walls over the course of our lives, and even just the course of a day, you know, and being able to kind of not break down the walls, but just put a door there that you can walk through and kind of get outside them for a bit. And then you can
Mhm.
hold yourself back up after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well said. Allard, I would love to hear your take on this, mentioning that, you know, as with your group in particular, it's kind of started as very much like video game mindset, but then you kind of have evolved into that. So how did that kind of work for your crew?
Yeah, it was definitely starting out more of a, like, I guess it's similar to a completionist kind of mindset, but more, I don't know, more mechanical about it than what TTRPGs actually end up being.
Mhm.
So, like, realizing that your actions can affect the world around you in like more tangible ways than video games was something that, like, so now the reward from it isn't always just getting the item, it's how you've interacted with the
journey there.
scenery
Yep.
around you. But like, for general and new advice, I come from a more heavy rules based system, and that can be daunting for a lot of people. If you have a good GM, you can get away with not really like fully absorbing all of the rules and stuff. But for systems like that, I think taking some time to understand at least all of the rules for the mechanics of your character
Mhm.
goes a long way into being able to like role play them a little bit more
Mhm.
efficiently. You kind of start to understand the bounds of your characters a little bit more, and you can play with them in the
Mhm.
role play as much as you like. And then just not, don't, it comes back to like, leave the anxiety at the door. Don't
Yeah.
stress about needing to say the most dramatic line or have the wittiest comeback to the big bad or something like that. Just
Mhm.
worry about having a conversation with your friends and staying present in that moment, and you'll find those moments.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think you brought up an interesting point. Since we're all theater nerds here, there, Mamet felt very, a heel of a person, but very good at the thing that he does. And in his book, he talks about how everything an actor needs is on the page.
Mhm.
And if it's not in the script, then it doesn't matter. Then that's not information that you need to have. And I think role-playing games are the same way, that the mechanics are either what defines your character or the lens through which you view them.
Mhm.
Like we were talking earlier about different character types. In 5e, a wizard is going to have a very different understanding of the world than a sorcerer does.
Mhm.
The mechanics of how they view things. If I can figure out the math to understand how a fireball works, that is a very different kind of person than somebody who says, yeah, I just get real mad and things blow up around me.
I just kind
Right?
of am fire.
Yeah.
Like, I
And-
just wanted to cast Fireball, and then
Yeah.
one day it happened.
And then it happened. And I think that is a really good starting place. I think that's really important. I also think, and this is going to be ironic considering all of the words that I have said during this recording, but I think it's important to listen more than you talk.
I was going to say the
Yeah.
same thing.
For sure. Even for a GM.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Your players as a GM are going to tell you what they want from your world. The things that they interact with, that's what they're interested in exploring.
Yeah.
As a player, the role playing, these intense moments that we all want, these meaty scenes, they're going to come because we notice that our friend in the party is reacting strongly to something that just happened. And so by paying attention to that, by keying in to the people around the table with you, you're going to find these moments that you wouldn't otherwise if you were just I was thinking about this monologue that I was practicing in the car, and hold on, wait, I remember what the line was that I wanted to say, because that just takes you away from the truth of that moment.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yep.
I think also start just in general, stepping away from like the emotional, more like role-playing aspect of it. For somebody who's new, find a podcast that you like that plays the system you're going to.
Absolutely.
When I was starting Dungeons and Dragons, I'd never done anything with TTRPGs. I had seen a couple mentions of this weird thing called Critical Role.
What? What's that?
I don't know.
ROLL?
And I was like, okay, well, I'll listen to that. And coincidentally, they were transitioning from Pathfinder to 5th edition, so they were also learning all of the rules. And I was able to learn that. I got into Monster of the Week because my friends sent me a video about the Absurdius system, and then I just kind of looked into Quinn and found Monster Hour, and then I went, oh shit, this system is so cool. I like this so much better than any system I've ever played. And I didn't even like buy the rule book before I started planning a campaign because I just listened to the rules and I listened to the players playing them, and especially like the only Monster of the Week podcasts I've listened to are Monster Hour and Shrimp and Crits, but both of you guys are really good about like explaining the rules as you go. Which is always really helpful, and there are a bunch of podcasts will do that, especially when they know like they are just actively being inclusive of not just their target audience, but any audience that might come across them. And if you listen to people who genuinely enjoy the game, it'll get you excited to genuinely enjoy the game on top of like seeing all of these rules in action. Like, I'm not the type of person who can read an instruction manual and know how something works. I need to see it in action. I need to see it done or listen to it done. And so that has just helped me so much. Like, oh, hey, here's this weird situation. But they also addressed this in this specific episode of Monster Hour, and here's how they did it, and I like that, so we're going to do this.
Yep.
You're going to be scared when you start playing these games. The first time I introduced a character, it was a home game, not on a podcast. I was sweating, white as a sheet. I like blacked out. It was intense. The first 10 episodes of Shrimp and Crits, I'm like quivering. I'm so scared. I'm not a theater kid. I have never been on stage in front of people. This was my first time sending my voice out at all.
Oh, yeah.
So you're going to be scared, but it will get better.
Yeah. And it'll progress. You can start off small. You don't have to do a character voice. You can be more of a passive role playing and say my character does this. You don't have to say I do this.
Absolutely.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
That's totally valid too. It comes as you go. So okay, well, we touched a little bit on the listening aspect and how that can really help with role playing, which I think actually dovetails nicely into the next question I have here about how TTRPGs are often, I mean, they are collaborative, usually, unless you're playing a solo TTRPG, they are generally collaborative. And sometimes some people are not as great at role playing, or they maybe don't like role playing, but it is still fun and it is obviously more enjoyable when you can RP together. So I want to start with Allard, since you are kind of the GM of your game. How have you found like kind of trying to facilitate role playing or RPing with the character? Have you found something? What have you found to be effective? What have you not found to be effective?
Yes, as a GM, if you can show a player who's maybe not feeling connected a way that their actions or something that they did has changed the world around them, or there's a consequence for something that they did that they didn't think about, I find that has hooked a lot of people into it.
Yep.
And then if you're like a player in this setting, trying to maybe bring out some role play from a friend across the table, like try to engage with them in character a little bit. Like say, I don't know, pleasantries like a regular person talking in real life kind of does, I guess. I've noticed a lot of like I've been able to play in a lot of games over the last year or so, and I've noticed a tendency for players to interact more with the GM and their NPCs in character than the players around them. And I think just kind of trying to make it more, I don't know, inclusive for just communicating in character really goes a long way into making everybody kind of more comfortable and then having more fun with the story and everything too.
And I think, for these real life table kind of games, not something for a podcast, obviously, I think it's important to remember that not everybody is there for the same reason that you are. Matt Colville has his whole series is great.
The types of players?
Yes.
Yes.
That, there's like, I think 7 different types of players is what he comes up with. And my husband and I, we played at a table with some of our dear, dear friends. One of my favorite games that I've ever gotten to play. And we had a wonderful player there who was incredibly clever and a really smart strategist. But he didn't have any interest in role playing. We'd try and engage with him, and he'd say a little bit, and then he'd be done. And he was a spectator player. He enjoyed being there. He enjoyed spending time with us. But when we'd check in and say, "Hey, I'd really like to do. I have a question that I'd like to ask your character. Are you up for that?" And he'd say, "Yeah, no, I'm good." And so let that stand. And they will either see you having so much fun that they want to get in on it eventually, or that they're just that other kind of character. And that's cool too, because that means more stage time for you.
I think sometimes you also have to think about accessibility at your table. If you, especially for the GM, going and you notice like a player who's not engaging as much, especially in a larger group, I would absolutely recommend going one-on-one and like asking them, or if you're a player and you notice this, go to your GM and tell them to reach out to the player. I can't remember where I read this, but we were talking about the question. I just remembered a story of like this group where one of the players, English was a second language, and they really weren't fluent. Spanish was their first language, and they were just having a hard time keeping up with an English-dominated table. But in D&D, it's not necessarily one language; it's just common, so it can in the real world be whatever language you want. And the GM eventually like noticed this, reached out, found out that this was the issue, and they made it a part of the character that the character did not speak common. But one of the other players also spoke Spanish, and so they made that like an actual language,
That's
a designated language in the game.
Cool.
Suddenly, the player was talking; they were engaging,
That's
they
awesome.
were having so much fun because they could talk to the other player who spoke Spanish in Spanish and have that player in real life and in the game translate for the party. And so sometimes it's like, and sometimes it's an accessibility thing like that. Sometimes it's a comfort thing where maybe they just, maybe the party is just too big. And so maybe you try and, do the God forbidden splitting the party. It's having
My
a
favorite.
favorite thing to do. Sometimes sometimes it's a matter of comfort, but every once in a while there is an actual issue that can be resolved, and it's an easy solution. And sometimes maybe it's not so easy, but for the game and for the sake of everyone having fun, even if it's not easy, it's going to be worth it to make sure that people are enjoying themselves.
Right.
I think something that does help at a lot of tables, especially if there's a lot of people, but even in a more intimate setting, using the character's name while you're at the table is very important and helps keep people
100%.
in character.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, if you're going to talk about something very much outside, use their real name. But I mean, I call Ryan and Katie Sarah and Ray Ray all the time. And when we're recording, it's like, I get on Ian a lot for calling us our names when he should be calling us our character names.
Who's that guy? I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then we go into a whole thing about how we're in the game.
Yeah.
It's always a joke. But when I was GMing heavily for D&D, I would start each session with going around the table and addressing the character or player by their character's name and asking them. I had like a list of like 100 icebreaker questions.
Yeah.
And that had nothing to do with D&D, but I would be like, what is your so-and-so, what is your favorite food? Or even like, what if you're going to bed, what is your nighttime routine? Just like weird things like that they didn't even think about with these characters that will help pull them into that character before the game. It really does help.
I love that.
Especially with new players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know in a game like Monster of the Week where, you have, sessions and mysteries that after they conclude, you might have something like a downtime in between the next mystery and such. That's actually another really great opportunity for some of those character moments.
Yeah,
quiet time.
So if you can think in advance, maybe reach out to another player or your GM and say like, hey, I was thinking about maybe doing this next session. Do we have maybe a little bit of time before that to maybe do a scene? And actually planning for that in advance, I think can be wildly helpful too. So
it definitely helps your GM when you do that. Hey, I want to interact with like Eli will give me a list of like and I want to go to Coral and I want to go to Dale and I want to go to so and so and I want to go to so and so and I want to go to so and so and I'm like, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
And I want to go to Sears.
Or the Red Lobster.
Arby's.
All right. So, Cap, I want to start with you for this next question because you mentioned this a little bit. What you struggle with sometimes is when you have to be mean to to be mean when you're being mean to Ryan or Katie or whoever. When things get really tense during a session, how do you step away from your character to decompress and sort of avoid, character bleed, which if you do not know what character bleed is, listeners, that's basically just where the emotions of a character affect you outside of the game or vice versa. Maybe you have something that's going on in your personal life that is coming into, the play. How do you avoid or how do you maintain that separation?
Yeah, like I said before, having a space to be your character really does help. Having time after you play a session to just talk to the other people at the table and be like, hey, I'm not mad at you. I want you to know that. This is not real. Like a lot of times Ryan's character will get angry at me. And I, when we started playing, had a hard time differentiating if that was Ryan or Ray being mad at me. So just like being open and talking about that. Again, a place of privilege. I have a therapist that like when we were starting this game, I was seeing her every week, and I didn't have a therapist to play TTRPG games, but it always bled into it. She randomly had a bunch of podcasting clients, which is very strange. So she like knew what I was talking about. Yeah,
that's hilarious.
Serendipity. But it really does help to have someone outside of the game to talk to. Like my partner doesn't listen to our show. I kind of prefer it that way. Not that I wouldn't love another listener. But I'll go in there and say the most ridiculous stuff about what just happened. That makes zero sense to anyone. And they'll be like, oh, that's great. Keep going. What does that even mean?
That sounds really intense.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll come out like crying. And say like, what happened? So having someone to talk to, really important. Talking to the other people you're playing with, even more important than that. And just trying to remember that it is just a game.
Yeah.
Take a breath.
Yeah, it got me in my feels now.
Yeah. What about you, Ghost?
I think, and this goes back to me being very music oriented. Sometimes I will, if I need to cool down after being in character, I will turn on a different playlist. I will switch playlists, and that's kind of like me stepping out of the room because I play all of my games sitting on my bed. So that's the way I switch gears. I'll put on like a playlist for a different character or just a playlist for myself, talking about it after, again, with the like, hey, I'm not mad at you, I promise. There was one time in one of my home games, one of my characters, one of the elders from her forest did a big fuck up. did a big fuck up. Hid some information she shouldn't have hid. Talked to a player's familiar in a way that she should not have. And I went off. It was like a minute and a half. I was railing into a senior member of the tribe, and I had to we had to take a break after that, and I had to look at my GM and say, I am not mad at you. I love you. That was great. Please, I'm not mad at you. But I think that communication, that checking in, definitely. But it's also like sometimes I just let it bleed. Like if I have a really tough moment in character and like to a point where I'm like crying, then I just let it happen.
Yeah.
I just let it go. There was I had another character at one point had like a commune with her dead grandmother, and it hit me because I was like, oh god, I wish I could do this with my recently passed grandmother. And I just had to ride that wave, let it go, feel the feels, and take a deep breath and not try and switch out of it, not try and put it aside, just like open myself up to these fake but very real emotions. And sometimes it is better to let yourself bleed in and out and then kind of like wipe away the mess after.
Yeah, we do put a lot of ourselves into our characters.
Yeah,
and no matter what character you play, there's going to be something.
This was Oscar Wilde is like, if you give a man a mask, he'll show you his true face. Something like that.
Yeah.
What about you, Allard?
I think that, so we play in my basement. So every time after the session was done, changing location, I think it was a nice way to decompress. In general, when like emotions are bleeding, it's really good to talk about it. If the person is having like strong feelings about it and needs to vent, let them vent, and let them know that their feelings are real and valid, and don't do things to like dismiss them or try to like help in a way like that doesn't matter, blah 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 blah. No, let them feel it out and accept it and know that they're not judged for feeling a certain way. And if it's like more of a contention thing, then being like, I don't feel this way in real life. This is just kind of all heated in the moment. And we got carried away.
Right.
And it helps that, and for my situation, it helps that I've known all my players for like 6-7 years at this point.
Yep.
So actually almost 10 years now.
We're just such good actors. Sometimes we're just so in character, you know?
Well, that's the flip side of those real memories that our brain makes, right? Yeah. That these feelings that we're having are real. And when I was reading over this question, the thing that I thought of, we haven't run into any of this on our show. Nate, my husband, he runs it, and I'm like, yes, try and kill me. Give me what you got, Let me do this. But that home game that we played with some of our friends, I swear to you, he made a character specifically to annoy the piss out of me. and like he says it wasn't, fine, whatever, but I know the truth. And there would be days that we would drive the couple of blocks home after we had been playing for 7 hours with all of our friends. And he'd be going off about something that happened. And I would just have to say, look, I love you very much, but I am pissed at Turavok right now, and I don't want to talk to either of you. You just, I need a minute. Yep. I need a minute sometimes. And I think that that's a good thing. My instinct as a performer, probably because it's my instinct as a person, is I say, oh, look, an emotion. Let me look at this and study it and understand it. And by intellectualizing it, I can recreate it at a later date.
Right.
These were literal notes that I got from my professor when I was in college. I took them to heart. But those moments where I do feel that emotional response, those are so special when I can just lose myself in whoever it is that I'm being in that moment. Whether those are negative or positive feelings, I just think it's really important to honor that. Not to be all method, because I don't think I'll go on the record here. I don't think that's healthy, but understanding that those emotions that you're feeling are real is a good thing and should be honored.
Yeah. And I, for me personally, I can get really into the emotions of my character and all the things you guys are saying. I think it's important to have communications to say like, that was Kira, that was not Lauren, or whatever. Or if you're like close group of friends, taking time after, get out, go do something fun, play video games, whatever else it is, just have fun and have a good time. Another thing that I do, not as much these days, but sometimes I will actually even write like my character's thoughts or a small scene maybe of like what was going on in their head, just because that's my background is I'm a writer. So that is another thing I do too that kind of helps me to sort of compartmentalize just like, this is the thoughts that the character is thinking, and honestly helps me to understand them a little bit more, but also recognize that's them, not me.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That's something that I enjoy doing from time to time.
Yeah.
All right. We have one last question, and I wanted to end it on a high note. What is, or who is, your favorite character that you've ever played and why? And yes, I am making you choose.
You sent these questions, and I saw that, and I spent, I don't even know how long just thinking of every time I thought I landed on one, I would think of a new character, and I would.
It's hard because, as we've said, each of our
hard.
characters has like some aspect of us in them, and so they're important for various reasons.
So hard to choose which one.
Yeah, there's no way I'm going to be able to choose one. Wow. So I've played Ari probably longer than most other characters, just an amount of time, and I love Ari dearly.
Love that boy. Yeah.
Probably going to be a choice. I have played a very gravelly raccoon named Ruben, and I love Ruben very much. Ruben is very close to my heart. He's just like a little raccoon goblin. I love him so much. I got to play Dorian on Monster Hour, who is just the villain. Spoilers.
I forgot that was you.
And I love playing a villain. If you need a villain on your show, let me know, because it's so fun to be so far outside of who I am as a person and just be evil.
And you don't have to worry about being mean to your friends.
Exactly. I am encouraged to be mean to my friends. It's impossible to choose. I mean, I'm probably going to have to say Ari just because we are one and the same at this point. Just played him for so long and gone through more than I've gone through. He says, all my other GMs, they're too scared. They're too scared to do bad things to their players. And if you're listening, I'm talking to you, because Ian will pull the rug out from us every moment and make us have to make these horrible decisions. And that's how you grow, is you have to make decisions. In life and in games, you have to make hard decisions. So
give me the
if
torture.
We're judging by how many hard decisions we've made, my favorite character is Ari. There.
Fine.
I said
I did it.
Dang. It's official.
What about you, Heather?
Well, I'm fickle. My favorite character is always the one that I played most recently. So for me too, that's Mags. I do feel that she's very close to me. Like Mags and I are probably sisters in some shared universe. But it's so wonderful to truly understand the foibles of a character in the way that playing someone who's right next to you can be. Somebody said earlier, the wonder Cap, I think it was you. The wonderful thing about Monster of the Week is that it's contemporary. It's modern era. You don't have to remove yourself quite so much as you do when you're playing something in a high fantasy setting or superheroes or whatever it is. And so getting to have what would this person who has only just found out about all of these horrors, how would they think about this, is so fun. And it gives you so much depth. And so I think Monster of the Week is honestly my favorite system. And I've played several different characters within the system, but Mags is my favorite. I love her. She's a good girl, as she would say.
Bestest girl.
She's a good girl.
What about you, Allard? You have so many characters that you play.
Yeah. I'm going to go with one that I wasn't a GM for.
Okay.
I've recently so there's like three. My three recent ones it's hard to choose from. I've recently connected with a D&D character that I made the day before the first session, and I just kind of it was one that I just found the character as I was going it, his Thaxus von Odenbrand, and he's a paladin of Istis. He follows the Lady of Fate. So as long as he doesn't like think about it too much and just like acts, he can just figure out his way, and fate falls where it needs to.
Yes.
Oh my god! Already.
Yes.
Either that, or I've just started playing a Starfinder camp module a little bit. So I have Jean Le Bon Dupont. He's a mechanic grenader who just likes explosions and was a space carny from in the Bizarre Stars Star Bazaar.
Delightful.
I love that.
That is
Yeah, so those are two characters that I have right now that I've just been having a lot of fun with, sinking my teeth into them currently.
Fun.
I actually want to say as a disclaimer, I've been running a Monster of the Week game for a while. I've yet to play in the system.
Oh,
okay.
Wow.
So if anyone's got a game, let me know, because I think just on account of how much and how quickly I fell in love with the system, I think any character I play in Monster of the Week will just so quickly become a favorite of mine. But can I also pick two? Because I had one. You go. And then Allard reminded me of another one. So the first one that I was going to say is actually Yannick Petresque, who is the character I play for We're Not in Kansas Anymore. He/they, all four of them. I love how every single problem that I have been given on that show, I have solved with a conversation.
Nice.
I
love that.
I have never actually fought with this character. Every single problem, and sometimes I don't even roll for it because Brian, just the GM, is just like, yeah, no, you just role played that so well. I did not make you roll because like shit. And it's just, I take so much pride in being able to in real life, quote unquote, being able to take everything that is thrown at me and solve it non-violently and diplomatically. I didn't even notice that, not only that I was doing that, but that he was letting me do that until a while in. And I just love that I know that I can go into that game and I'm going to be presented with a problem that I can solve my way. And that I'm never going to be forced into a fight. I can choose to solve my problems that way, but I don't have to. And I love the concept of that. And I love that I get to satisfy that ideal that I have.
Mm-hmm.
Completely on the contrary.
On the other end
is a centaur barbarian named Luchai, which is quite literally deliberately shortened from the Spanish luchador.
Love it.
And he talks like this, and he's got no thoughts in his head, and he's got such great wisdom, and he's got a great battle strategy, and he doesn't like to solve things with a fight, but he did decapitate Strahd's right-hand man in about 3 rounds of combat, so he can and will solve things with violence. I love how batshit insane he is. I got so much freedom with it. And I think it's so funny. I didn't even realize they were two wildly different characters till I started talking about Luchai. But yeah, if I had to pick two, it'd be those two, my boys.
Awesome. So that is it for our questions. So before we sign off, thank you to all of you guys again. But before we sign off, I want to have you guys just remind the listeners who you are and where they can find you. So let's just go alphabetically again. So Allard, let's start with you.
All right. Again, I'm Allard LaRue from the Dice Crisis podcast. Look us up at the Dice Crisis on all social media, thedicecrisis.com. Our feeds are on all things right now. Look out for our next thing. I think actually we have announced it. So our next little adventure is We Be Goblins. So we're gonna do an all goblin party for like it's a short module just to kind of do something a little bit more fun. Yep. Whoops. So yeah, look for us out there.
Perfect. Cap?
Yes, I am Cap from Shrimp and Crits, one of 4. You can find us on every social media at Shrimp and Crits. You can find me on Twitter at Cap and Crits. We are a Southern Fried Monster of the Week podcast. Please come listen. It's very fun. I recommend it.
And Ghost.
I am Ghost. I'm from We're Not in Kansas Anymore with Dungeons and Pop. I believe they are on Twitter as Dungeons and Pop. I am also on Twitter as druidic.vo or Instagram as druidic.design. It's very fun. Come listen to us and all the other great shows that Dungeons and Pop is putting out.
Awesome. Thank you. Heather?
I'm Heather. I play Mags Oliver on Nameless Monsters. You can find us, I believe, on all of the podcatchers. And we are at namelessmon_pod at Twitter. I'm Heather Kaye, I believe. It's been so long, I honestly don't remember.
We'll have it right in the show notes.
Yeah. You're not here for me anyway. You're here for the show. So, but we'd love. We're just getting started. We're about to release episode 11 this coming week. So
Exciting.
Get on the train early, y'all.
Choo choo.
Thanks so much for hosting this, Lauren. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, thank you,
Thank
Lauren.
you guys. I had
For
so
real,
much fun
thank you.
talking with all of you guys
Yeah.
about these games that we know and we love, and it was just so much fun getting to talk with all of you. So thank you, everybody, and we will sign off and say goodbye.
Bye. Thanks for listening.
This has been Book Club, Act Like a Hero. A huge thank you to Allard, Cap, Ghost, and Heather for joining me this episode. You can find the links to their shows in this episode's show notes. The Monsters Playbook is produced and engineered by Maya Detchen and edited by Maya Detchen and myself. Our theme song is by Jonny Grubb. If you like this episode, please tell a friend. We love friends. You can find the Monsters Playbook on the social media channel of your choice. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr. You can hang out with us on our Discord, and if you like what we're doing, please consider supporting us on Patreon. We'll see you next week for a brand new episode of The Cover Story, where, as always, we'll have some good news and some bad news. Thanks for listening. I keep seeing your cat, Cap.
All that time you spent trying to shut the door. Cat will find a way.
Adorable. Hey, we all have our podcats that interrupt us and come and they will be heard.
Did you just say podcats?
Podcasts.
Yes.
Yes.
I
Yes.
love that so much.